Hello, class. We're back. If you have a book there, would you turn to page 84? That's definitions. And let's take a whack at some of these. I don't know that we're going to get through 3 pages of these things, but let's see what we can do. Okay. The first one on the definitions, this is section 10.03, page 84. It's right after the last of the principles. It's actually the next page after what we were just going over. The first definition in this book is called accessible. Now, again, those of you who had me last year know that we went over this quite a bit. But you tier one guys, I know we have. I don't believe we've talked about this yet. So let's start with that word, accessible. According to the dictionary, I think if you looked up accessible, it means something you can access, something you can get to. In our case, for plumbing, it means something that you can get to. Access, they call it access there too, but may require the removal of an access panel, a door, or similar obstruction. It usually refers to a clean out. So let's say that you have a clean out in the floor, but there's a cover over it. You have to take the cover off to get to the clean out. Or a better example would be a clothes washer valve. A tub valve. Sometimes on the back of that wall, maybe in a closet, you'll see like a piece of plywood with 4 screws, maybe a foot by maybe 18 inches long. And if you take the 4 screws off, there you got the valve. That's an example of accessible. It means you can get to it, but you can't get to it without taking something out of your way. All right, that's the word accessible. Now, what I did in my book is to put the word readily accessible in that space there. There's quite a bit of space right next to where it says obstruction. You can do it if you want. Readily accessible is a definition further in the book under R, obviously. And readily accessible is similar, but a little different. This would be an example. You go down in your basement and you can see the cleanouts. You can just touch them, reach and touch them. They're right there. There's nothing in the way. That's readily accessible. Okay, so if I turn a few pages here, let me read that definition to you. I don't have the definition written there. Okay, readily accessible, direct access without the necessity of removing or moving a panel, door, lock, or similar obstruction. Nothing in the way. Okay, now the word they don't have here, and you can write it down if you want, is inaccessible. I think they should, but they don't. Inaccessible means you can't get at it. This would be a trap in a concrete floor, like if you had a bathroom on a slab, a bath on a second floor. You can't get at that trap, right? You can get it. Yes, you can get it to it from the drain, but you can't get underneath it. You can't get the clean out off. All right, that's inaccessible. The only way to get at it would be to cause damage. So that would be the third type of access. But it's not in the book, right? They don't list it. I'm not asking you to write it down. Now this one here is air break and air gap. That's a type of indirect waste. So let me show you what that's all about. I don't think we've done that at all this year. Okay, let's see what the book says about that. Air break. A piping arrangement wherein a drain from a fixture, appliance, or device discharges indirectly into a fixture, receptacle, or interceptor at a point. Here's the key word. Highlight this word. Below the flood level rim of the receptacle. Translation. The drain comes out below the pipe that it's connected to. Clothes washer. So we have a P-trap. Okay, remember 18 to 24. And here's your clothes washer hose. It hooks in like that, right? It's not airtight. That's an indirect drain, right? Not a solid connection. Now, my advice to you is do your P-trap, and if you don't have a clothes washer box, clip it. Get like a 1.5-inch galvanized clip right into the plywood that you put on the cement wall, if that's what you're doing. And clip this too. Don't forget to support this pipe, so you put one clip over around here and maybe another one over here somewhere. All right, now if you're going to be a nice guy and hook up the clothes washer, be careful if it hasn't happened to you yet. If you just put the clothes washer hose in and it's not in there really deep, you don't want to jump it out, right? Because your good deed might result in this hopping out and causing a flood. So that's not part of your job. Your job is just the standpipe. But it's a good example of an air brake. Okay, now the air gap is a little different. It's the next one. And you'll notice that both of these are from a drainage system. An air gap. Let's try this one. The same definition exactly. But it discharges. It's the unobstructed vertical distance through the free atmosphere. Actually, this one is a little bit more. Remember I told you, this is how the lawyers word some of these things. Through the free atmosphere between the outlet and a waste pipe and a flood level rim of the receptacle into which the waste discharges. Okay, this through the free atmosphere stuff is actually pretty simple. So let's say you have a drain, some kind of drain, and it's in a commercial building, kitchen, freezer, walk-in cooler or something, and you have pipes that drain down to it like this here. I guess some of you have seen this. The air gap is this space right here, right? We'll say it's 3 inches. Okay, that's that through the free atmosphere that they're talking about. Okay, so this one here hooks right in. This one does not. So this one is actually a safer bet because it can't siphon anything out of there. Okay, so this would be an air gap. This would be a pipe coming down from somewhere else, right? A drip. It could have a couple of these. So there's an example of an air gap on the drainage side. Another one would be a bathtub. So you can have a tub. All right, here's your tub. And remember, you have to have your spout. Actually, this is a pressure one. This is not a drainage. So you have an air gap right here, this space right here. Now, this here is 2 pipe diameters. Remember that? 2 pipe diameters right here. So 1, 2. So whatever the spout, we'll say the spout is equivalent of 1.25 inch circle. This would have to be up 3 inches, which is probably, I think everybody here puts them up at least 3 inches high. Again, you all have your own way of doing it, but it's supposed to be a minimum of 2 pipe diameters above the flood level rim. That's an example of an air gap. This is drainage, these two. This one is actually pressure right here. Okay, but the main title for both of these are an indirect waste. Air brake, air gap. And they don't mention tubs specifically, but under water distribution, which is pressure piping, they do mention flood level rim of a related receptacle. Now, if you have a tub, let's say it's one of those, a very fancy tub, kind that they drop into a platform, and you have a faucet that actually comes in below flood level rim like this. I don't know if you guys have been still putting these in, but would have this piping would leave the faucet and would run over to the wall. This would be like in a box. You just drop the tub in, and this will go over to a backflow preventer in the wall, like a vacuum break, excuse me, and then over to the faucet and come out here. Okay, so the water could not siphon out of here and back into the system. It would have to go through that vacuum valve. Okay, so that's an example of how you get around this 2 pipe diameter rule. Another one, and this one I think a lot of you guys that do remodeling will see if you haven't seen it already. The old tub on legs. Your old tub on legs, something like that. and you got that clawfoot thing over here, and the faucet, little tiny faucet, comes through like that, right? That's illegal. You can fix the faucet, but don't replace it. Okay, you can work on it, and you're okay. It's grandfathered. As soon as you take that faucet out and take the tub out, you can't reinstall it. So what happens now is uh, there is a faucet that comes up like this. Some of you have probably seen it with, and it, it's got a gooseneck right here, and your air gap is right there. So if you see a tub on legs and there's very, very expensive looking faucet like this here, that's a modern faucet, and that's to make it legal. All right. If it comes out here, you can fix it, but you cannot replace it. If you're going to replace it, you're going to have to put one of these in. At least that's what you're supposed to do. Okay. If you get any questions on any of this, I'm so used to asking if you got any questions, but obviously I can't answer them. I can't get your questions right now. I'm going to leave that anti-siphon valve off for now. Area drain. This would be more of an outside thing. I guess it could be in a warehouse also. Usually commercial. We don't have too many area drains. Area drain usually is outside. We don't have, that's not something we deal with very often. And when we do, it's usually for a big job where the specifications are very tight. They'll tell you exactly what kind of drain you're going to use, not just the size and the location, but the exact model that they want you to install. Again, that's up to your boss. Okay, let's take a look at the top of page 85. They mentioned backflow. All right, backflow just means water that's going in a different direction than its normal flow. For us, backflow is a problem. It's the flow of water or other liquids or substances into the distributing pipes of a potable water supply system from any source other than its intended source. Translation: it's water that may not be safe to drink or bathe or cook with or anything else. And we talked about it already under the. I brought it up under the principles. An example is the backflow preventer on a heating system. Now, a few things about the heating system. Again, this isn't the place to be doing heating systems, but a few things on the plumbing part of a heating system, for those of you who don't know it. Most of the heating system, all of you can do without a plumbing license, right? In Massachusetts, you don't need there's no license for that. What you cannot do is the gas. If it's a gas boiler, you got to stay away from that. The oil, if it's an oil burner, right, stay away from that. You can run your little 3/8 tubing from the oil tank, but just leave like a couple of coils right at the boiler. Don't hook it up. You're not licensed, you're not insured. So leave a coil there and have your heat guru, the guy that you deal with for heat, let him or her hook it up. They'll put their sticker on it, and then when it needs time for servicing, the annual service, they'll get a phone call. You don't want it. You're not trained in that anyway. And even if you're trained, unless you have a license, you shouldn't be doing it. So you got the heating license or the burner technician license. You got the gas fitter's license if it's a gas boiler. Leave those two alone. And the only other thing you got to watch out for is the water supply to the boiler itself. The only connection between a heating system, hot water heating system, and a plumbing system is the makeup water, right? Which is obviously coming off the cold with a shutoff. So you're going to need a shutoff, backflow preventer, and a pressure reducer. Your town water or your city water, or even your well water, the pressure is going to be too high. The boiler will trip out at 30 pounds. 30 pounds, as I mentioned, is barely adequate. So you absolutely have to put a pressure reducer on the system, but that does not mean that the pressure reducer is a backflow preventer. Years ago, they didn't put the backflow preventer on. All you had was a pressure reducer, and the old ones were like round. They were before my time, so these are back like in the 60s. They were like round, and there's still some out there. The new ones are kind of like square-sided, and I've seen some of the recent ones, and they haven't changed in 40, 45 years. They still look the same. And the backflow preventer also hasn't really changed. And you can tell when you see an old system, there's no backflow preventer. And I'm surprised that nobody required that before the code. I'm guessing the code came up with that in the 70s. But The backflow preventer requires a plumbing license. Everything on the boiler side of that, like the pressure reducer, you can put that in without a license. Now, the last thing on the boiler that you cannot do is a tankless water heater, right? That's the cold water coming over to the boiler, goes through the coil in the boiler, comes out very hot, and you have to temper it down, and that's a talk for another night. Okay, that is all plumbing license required. All right, there's nothing there that you can do without a plumbing license. It's like a water heater. Okay, but the rest of the heating system, all the baseboard, the radiant heat, or whatever you're using, Tokik heaters, all of that is unlicensed, right? Doesn't require a plumbing license in Massachusetts. Okay. All right, moving on. Backflow preventer and connections we talked about. Let's see, back pressure. Back pressure we talked about with a trap losing its seal. And then they got back pressure valve, again, to prevent unwanted siphoning of a chemical. All right, so you got, again, a lot of this is backflow, back siphonage. All right, let's leave that alone. Now, barometric loop. This is down almost about a third of the way down the page. This one is really something for your license. In theory, water cannot siphon if you got a loop 35 feet high, right? Water won't siphon that high. You can only siphon maybe, I think, 20 some feet practically, but 35 feet, nothing's going to siphon. So a barometric loop, 35 feet high, would fill in for a backflow preventer. Okay, they mentioned back siphonage. Same thing. All right, water going the wrong way. Now this one here, under bathroom residential, what I would suggest you do is write down the word full in front of bathroom. Okay? Just write down the word full. And you'll see why in a second. Now, what's a full bathroom? A full bathroom is a tub or shower, one or the other, a toilet and a lav. Three-piece, right? Three-piece bathroom. You want to throw in an extra lav because it's a fancy bathroom. Big, long, 6-foot vanity. Go right ahead. It doesn't change the name. It's still a full bath. You want to have a tub and a shower, which I've seen, maybe a half a dozen times. Like people that have a lot of money, they'll have a bathroom as big as some living rooms, and they got the room to have like a big double countertop sink. They got maybe a bidet thrown in, a toilet, a tub, big fancy tub. I remember one customer had it was a 6-seater bathtub. It was a Whirlpool. This was like 35 years ago, or more than that. And at that time, it was over $2,000. And a shower, I think it was a handmade shower, mud shower, right? So you have like a 6-foot shower. Still a full bath. The name didn't change. Okay, now the next one, the half bath. All right, you might want to add a name to that one. You could add to that one a lavette, Lavette. We usually call it a half bath, but if you got a realtor or an owner or somebody else talking to you or some other contractor, a lavette, that's a name for half a bath. Now the half bath really is a half bath. It's 2/3 of a bath, except they round it off to a half. It's a toilet and a sink. That's all. And I think you're all aware of where you see that. It's usually a tiny bathroom, maybe on the first floor, to save people the steps are going upstairs to the full bath, like a master bath and a regular bathroom, like one for the kids. So they have a half a bath downstairs, tucked somewhere, maybe under a staircase or somewhere. And that's called a half bath, even though it's 2/3 of a bath. Now, one thing you should be aware of, especially on a half bath might not even have windows, which is okay. Legally, that's okay. You don't need a window. But it has to be hooked to a fan. So when you throw the light switch, it triggers a fan as usually part of the overhead light. Again, we normally don't get involved in it. Just once I got burned on this. The electrician didn't put in a fan, and there was no window. It was a half bath, and I got caught up in it. So if you see a situation where there's no fan going in, you better speak up, because our code says that if there's no window, that you have to have a fan. I ended up actually helping the electrician and I put in some aluminum vent pipe. I never saw that before. I've only seen galvanized, but this stuff was actually, it was light and it snapped together just like galvanized duct pipe, smoke pipe. But because of the moisture and the condensation, it didn't want to rot it out, because the galvanized will rot out eventually because it's just galvanized like paint on steel. So this was aluminum. So it was interesting hooking that up to the fan, and it vented outside. Okay, that was a half bath requiring a vent. And the size of the window, that it escapes me. I think it's something like 3 square feet. It's a very small window. The end has to be opening window, of course. But there is a size mentioned, and I don't have it right here. Okay, so let's leave the bathroom and battery of fixtures. Now, I know I did this with Tier 2. Tier 1, guys, don't worry about it. I'll just quickly, let's just see what it says here. Battery of fixtures. Any group of 2 or more similar fixtures that are adjacent, that means next to each other, which discharge into a common drain. So you guys that I didn't do this with, just picture a long 4-inch pipe in a building that would, we'll say a stadium, for example. You might have like half a dozen or more water closets all lined up. Now, if they're floor mounted, not wall mounted, these got to be floor mounted, they can all Y into the same drain. Okay, that's a battery of fixtures, adjacent fixtures. They're all next to each other and they're similar. In this case, they're the same. Okay, that's a battery. So for this class, that's good enough. Okay, black water. All right, black water is water containing fecal matter. All right, translation. This is what's coming off from the toilet, right? Black water. Remember the name. You might even hear that out in the trade. A lot of these names we only see or hear in the code book, but this is one you might hear elsewhere. Now, what is something other than black water or potable water? There's one in the middle. It's called gray water. Now, what the hell is gray water? Now, some of you guys know, but maybe some of you new guys don't. Gray water would be water coming off a clothes washer, for example, kitchen sink, everything but a toilet, kitchen sink, bathtub, shower. That's gray water. You won't want to drink it, but it's not that bad. So that is gray water, but they don't mention it here. In fact, I don't think that even, if I remember right, gray water is not even in this book. But black water is. All right, and gray water is, oh, they do. I'm sorry, I'll take that back. I think in the old code books it wasn't here. All right, let's do the gray water. Since I opened my mouth, let's take a look at gray water. Used water outflowing from clothes washer, shower, tub, bathroom sink, and reused on the same site for below ground irrigation only. All right, I didn't know it was used for irrigation. And it says typically not treated. So my definition was good, except I didn't realize that it would irrigate the ground. Now, a regular septic tank, everything goes into the septic tank, and the solids, in theory, settle to the bottom. What's not broken down by those bacteria, and then the water goes out into the leaching field through the distribution box. Okay, now in the summer, sometimes you can see where the leaching field is because the grass is all fried, it's all brown, except for one area where it's all green. And so even the septic system with the black water does provide some irrigation. Now, I did have a, what do you call that? Dry well. They call it a dry well that you would use for like a clothes washer by itself. When I lived in Little Compton many years ago, probably almost 50 years ago, I dug a dry well by hand. How deep? Till I got tired. And I was much younger, so it was a pretty good sized hole. Filled it with rocks, lined it with tar paper, had a 2-inch pipe coming into it, and that's where the clothes washer went. And if the hole is big enough, before the water would like fill up the hole, the clothes would be done, and I never had a problem with it. So that is called a dry well. So when you hear the term dry well, which I don't think is in here, no, dry well is not here. You should know what that is. Okay, it's not something we usually get involved with, but you'll hear the term out in the trade. Okay, so black water, we're all set. And the boiler blow off, I don't even know why this is here. Um, this is not plumbing. This would be like on a steam boiler. You would have a spring-loaded valve. Some of you guys that have seen steam boilers know there's a spring-loaded valve. You turn it, and it's facing straight down, and usually there's a bucket there. Maybe a little short piece of pipe, maybe not. You open it, and it blows down all this rusty, nasty-looking stuff. And you're supposed to do that like there'll be a little tag there like every month, which of course never happens. I don't know why it's here because that's, that boiler is not part of the plumbing, but it's here. So we'll talk about it. Okay, branch. Okay, a branch is kind of, think about a tree. The trunk would be the building drain. Excuse me, the stack, excuse me. The roots would be the building drain. A branch would be anything coming off the stack. All right, so you can take a branch away and you still got a plumbing system. You take the stack away, you don't. So a branch would be like a 3-inch line going to the first floor on a 3-floor house. Okay, something like that. That's a branch. And a branch interval, I'm going to end. Let's finish. We can finish this page. Branch interval. This would be a story height, and they mention it right here. 8 feet minimum. Let's face it. Every floor is at least 8 feet high. Once in a while, the second floor is 7 and change, but usually 8 feet plus the floor joist, thickness of the floor, the ceiling, the ferrule. So you're looking at roughly 9 feet in a residential house. 10 feet in a commercial building is what we usually figure between floors. Okay, so that's a branch interval. And what I would do is highlight the word story height. That there, you know what that is. Everybody knows what a story height is. Branch interval, no. But here it is. That's what we call a story height. A branch vent is a vent that connects one or more individual vents, which we'll talk about. A building, we know what that is. And a building drain. You know what a building drain is. It starts at the bottom of the stack and goes out 10 feet outside the wall. Okay, that is it. I will see you back in class.